Today's math lesson is, as you see, rounding decimals. It is our 7th lesson in our Chapter 1 on place value. We are on page 39. I'm going to do the work here because many of you seem to not know where to go next when I was doing it on my notebook, so maybe this will be more helpful. Now it's harder to see, so I'm going to try my best to write neatly and large, and we're going to begin this lesson. Learning target. Use place value to round decimals. The way you know you really understand this concept is if you can explain which digit I use to round and why, and if I can round a decimal to any place, and that's important that you can do that. We're going to begin with a number line, and it's important that we study number lines and understand them. This is the whole number 3. Circle that. The next whole number that we come to on the number line is 4. Now, all these lines in between the number 3 and the number 4 represents parts, almost like a fraction, as if this were a candy bar. You remember doing fractions in candy bars. The space between the 3 and the 4 is divided with these little lines. Do you see that? Okay. So now it kind of looks like a fraction, doesn't it? But going from 3 to 4, they have divided the space between 3 and 4. Now, they could divide it as small as they want. They could divide it into 100 little pieces, and then we'd have hundredths. Or they could divide it into 10 little pieces, and we have tenths. Or if there was such a pen so tiny, we could divide this into 1,000 pieces, and we'd have thousandths in between. But here, let's see what they've divided it into, okay? They've divided it, we're just going to represent as we count how many places. Can't get my crayons out, sorry. All right, we're going to count. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. So they have broken the space between 3 and 4 on our number line into tenths. So boys and girls, you just have to understand, those of you having trouble with decimals, decimals represent part of a whole. The reason decimals can be found between the number 3 and the number 4 is because we can have 3 and a little bit more, but not quite 4. We can have 3 and a lot more, but still not be 4 wholes. We can have $3.50, but still not have $4. Decimals and fractions represent pieces between wholes. Let's take a look. They want us to plot the numbers on this number line. Which numbers round to 3 and which numbers round to 4? And how do you know? So the first strategy we're going to use to round is just to use our eyeballs. And we're going to take a look to see which number, if it's closer to 3, then it's about 3. But if it's over on this side and it's closer to 4, it would round to 4. Because those are the whole numbers. Remember, we circled the whole numbers. So let's look at each of our decimal numbers, plot where they are, and decide if it would round, if it's closer to the 3, or if it would round up because it's closer to the 4. All right, what I'm going to do is I'm going to color code each of my decimals so that when I put the mark on my number line, you'll know exactly which number I'm talking about. It's probably going to bleed through, but we'll worry about that next. All right, here we go. So we're going to start with 3 and 51 hundredths. All right. Well, oh no, Miss Carlisle, this is broken up into tenths and not hundredths. How will I ever find 51 hundredths in here? Well, guys, just because you have 51 hundredths, you still have 5 tenths. So here's 3 and 5 tenths, or $3.50. If we're just going to add a penny, I would say it's about here, don't you? Okay, and now let's do 3 and 6 tenths. Oh, that's easy. Well, this is 3 to 4, and they already divided it into 6 parts. 3 and 1 tenth, 2 tenths, 3 tenths, 4 tenths, 5 tenths. Oh, that's 6 tenths right here. So let me make sure I put the right one there. 6 tenths, right? All right, let's take a look at 3 and 9 hundredths. Now, I bet a lot of you right now would say, oh, 3 and 9 hundredths is right here. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. And I would say, wrong. That would be it if it were 9 tenths. This is 9 hundredths. This is 9 pennies. We don't even have a dime yet. And so it's not even to 3 and 1 tenth yet. See, there's 0 tens. That's what you're looking at. So, I mean, it would be like right here, almost, almost 10 cents. Yeah, 9 pennies is almost 10 cents. And then 3 and 77 hundredths, well, we're looking at the tens place. So it's past 70. And so that's 6, 3.5, 3.6, 3.7, and then it's almost, you got 7 pennies, so it's almost here. And then last but not least, we do have 3 and 9 tenths. That's $3.90. So that's right here, pretty close. Now we have a visual, and we can use our eyeballs, to round. Just stare at those polka dots. If the dot is closer to the whole number 4, it's going to round to 4. And if it's closer to the number 3, it's going to round to 3. Okay, let's take a look. This dot is here. It is past the halfway point. And so, since it is on this side of the number line, it is going to round to 4. Write that in your notebooks. Your workbooks. And I hope that you are doing everything that I'm doing. 3 and 6 tenths, well, that's over here. That's closer to the 4. So it's going to round to the 4. 3 and, they were trying to trick us with that 9, but that's 9 pennies. That's way over here. This does not round to 4. Nope, that does not round to 4. That rounds to 3. Purple, 3 and 77 hundredths is on its way to $4, so that's going to be 4. And this one is right beside it. It's $3.90, almost $4. So this is one strategy. We can plot these decimals on a number line, and we can determine if it's closer to 3, then we'll round down to 3, and if it's closer to 4, we'll round up to 4. But it just doesn't make sense to draw all these pictures every time we have to round. And so we're going to show our knowledge that we can do this with a number line, but we're really not going to use a number line every time we round because it takes some time. That's what's here. It says repeated reasoning. Show how you can use a number line to round these numbers. And so on our own, we're going to do that. So we are going to draw our arrows. You do this now. I'm looking to see if you can see. Yeah. And we're looking at these numbers. Whoa, 309, 3 and 9, what? Well, these numbers are all between 3 and 4. And we can divide ours up. We can have 3.5 right here. And so if it's bigger than 3.5, we know it's over here. And it's smaller, we know it's over here. So whatever side of this it falls on is going to be where it rounds to. So this is $3.09, 9 pennies. That's going to be over here somewhere. And 351, 3 and 51 cent or 3 and 51 hundredths, that's going to be a little bit past it. and 3 and 77th is going to get past it. So it's so easy to do this, to see, okay, these two numbers will round to 4, and this one will round to 3. And these three numbers are from up here, but they wanted us to show with our own knowledge. Now I'd like you to turn to page 39, or you may pause the video if you need to fill in the correct answers. All right, this next section is called Think and Grow, because as we think about these numbers, we can grow in our knowledge of math, okay? Here again, they want us to use our number line. Use a number line to round 7 and 36 hundredths to the nearest tenth. This isn't the nearest whole number. This is the nearest tenth. Well, here is 7 and 3/10, and here is 7 and 4/10. And what they did is they separated these so tiny that we could see 7 and 35 hundredths here in the middle. And so, as you can see, 7 has been, and 36 hundredths have been, the line has been plotted here on our number line. And if it's past the halfway mark, which is 5, then we're going to round to 7 and 4/10. And that's what it says right here. 7 and 36 hundredths is closer to 7 and 4/10 than it is to 7 and 3/10. So, 7 and 36 hundredths rounded to the nearest tenth is, well, the nearest tenth is this one. So we're going to write 7, I'll try to make it big so you can see, and 4/10. Okay? And here's another example they want you to take a look at. When we're rounding, and I hope you already put this in your notebook entry, when we are rounding, we are going to go to the number they want us to round to, and we're going to look behind to see if it's a bully or if it's a nice guy. Here, we're just practicing understanding our number line, okay? So here they took away the number line because they know that you can't draw this every time, and they're giving you instructions. All right, the instruction here says use place value to round 2 and 185 thousandths to the nearest whole number. Okay, that's the number right in front of the decimal. The nearest whole number, we're going to look at the ones place. Then you're going to look behind. Is that a wimp or a bully? In other words, I think I renamed my wimp Nice Guy because I don't want to consider anybody wimpy. But our nice guy isn't going to do anything to the 2. But if it were a bully, it would push the 2, push him, and it would become a 3. But we're not going to make any changes, so we drop the whole number that we're rounding to, and we turn everything else into a 0. Now, I could just leave the decimal off and all those zeros because it's still just 2. But I say we put it down anyway. It doesn't really matter. It doesn't change the value. So 2 and 185 rounded to the nearest whole number is 2. 2 and 185 rounded to the nearest hundredth. Oh, this is different. Here's the hundredths place. You put a square around it just like me. If we're rounding to the hundredths place, we have to decide if the 8 will stay the same or if there's a bully behind it that will push it up. Well, let's look behind. What number do you see? It's a 5. That 5 is a bully, so it will push that 8 up to a 9. So we're going to write the number just as it is until we get to the place value, and we're going to turn it to 9. And remember, everything after that, we turn to a 0. Now, I know this is harder to see, but some of you were complaining when I was writing large in that notebook that you couldn't tell where we are. So hopefully you're watching and you can see and keep up. We're going to continue to the show and grow right here, okay? Show and grow. This is page 40 of show and grow. I can do it. Right now, you're going to round these numbers to the place of the underlined digit. I'm going to do the first two with you. Then I want you to pause the video and do 3 and 4 by yourself. Then when you unpause this video, you can take a look to see if you have it right. Let's begin. This says round the number to the place of the underlined digit. Here, the 6 is underlined. That is the tenths place. Well, I don't do anything to these numbers. I'm going to put my decimal. I'm deciding what to do with that 6. Let's look behind. Do we have a bully or a nice guy? Well, that's a 7. That's a bully. So he's going to push that 6 around and push it right up to a 7. And then we're just going to put a 0 to represent the other place. Number 2. They've underlined the 3. 439 thousandths. We're going to keep our 0, our decimal, our 4, and now we're going to examine the 3. Who's behind that 3 in line? Is it a bully or is it a nice guy? The number is 9. That, my friend, is a bully. And that bully is going to push that 3 up, and the 3 is going to become a 4. And then we add that 0 to hold the other place. I'd like you to stop the video now and try numbers 3 and 4. And when you're done, unpause to see if you were correct. All right, this is a whole number. That's a bully. That's a 3. Turn everything into zeros. That's a 4 in the tenths place. Look behind it. It is Mr. Nice Guy. Nothing happens to that 4. And I leave the rest zeros. I hope you got both of those correct. Now they have this in word form for number 5. Round 68 hundredths to the nearest tenth. Now I'm going to make this larger just so you can see. They want me to round this number to the tenth. So there's the tenths place. So I'm deciding what to do here. Let's look behind them in line. Do we have a bully or a nice guy? Well, if you look closely behind the 6, what do we have? An 8. That 8 is a bully. So he's going to push the 6 up to a 7. And then we fill the rest in with zeros. Number 6, the number is 1 and 715 thousandths. They want us to round to the nearest hundredth. This is the hundredths place. Where do we look? Behind it. What do we see, guys? Is that 5 a bully or a nice guy? And we know that 5 is a bully, and so we're going to keep all the numbers in front the same, but that 1 is pushed around and pushed up to a 2, and then we fill the rest in with zeros. Would you please do 7 and 8 on your own, and then pause the video, and when you're done, see if you're right? The nearest whole number is this, so we're going to keep it the same because there was a nice guy behind it. Round to the nearest tenth. Here is the tenth. Behind it is a bully. So that 2 becomes a 3, and we do everything else in zeros. We're going to move along to apply and grow practice. And I'll be moving faster now that we're getting the hang of this. After we are done with apply and grow practice, you're going to move on to your homework practice here. 1.7 homework and practice. And you will complete this on your own. Your teacher will either send it to you in the digital slides for you to submit, or she'll ask you to do it here. So now's the time to pay attention so you'll know what to do then. Round the number to the place of the underlined digit. Here we have the 8 underlined. So I'm going to bring down the 1, the 4, and what do I do with this 8? Look behind it. That 8 has a nice guy behind it. So the nice guy doesn't do anything to the people in front of him. And we add the 0. Number 10 is 5 and 93 hundredths. No, Anybody notice I made a mistake? 5 and 93 thousandths. And here they've underlined the tenths place. So we leave everything in front the same. What do we do with the 0? We're either going to leave it alone or we're going to push it up. Who's behind it? A big bully, number 9. So that 0 becomes a 1 and we turn everything else into zeros. Number 11, the whole number is underlined. We're going to round to the nearest whole number. That is an 8, but look behind. What do we have? A bully or a nice guy? That 5 is in the bully gang. That 8 bounces up to a 9 and everything else becomes zeros. Here again, we're rounding to the nearest tens place. Look behind the 3, there's a 4. 4 is a Mr. Nice Guy, so we leave the 3 the same and turn everything else into zeros. I think you're probably getting the hang of this by now. I want you to do 13, 14, 15, and 16 on your own. Pause the video and see how you do. Check your answers. Round to the nearest tenth, which is here. To the nearest 10, that's here, and that's a bully, so that's 93. Now check number 16. Round this to the nearest hundredth. That's this. We've got a nice guy. All right, I like these. They give us a number, and then we have to round to the whole number, the tenth, and the hundredth. All right, and we're going to go a little faster, so pay attention. There's 829 thousandths. The nearest whole number is the ones place. If you look behind, we've got a bully, so that rounds up to 1. You can put the decimal in the zeros if you want, but you can also leave them off. They both equal 1. Round to the nearest tenth. Well, that is the 8. And if we're going to round to the nearest tenth, look behind the 8. What do you see? A 2. It's a nice guy. So we're going to leave it the same. You could leave off those zeros or you can add them. It's the same value. Nearest hundredth. Well, there's the hundredth. We've got a 2. Look behind the 2. Do we have a bully or a nice guy? There's a bully, number 9. So that goes and pushes the 2 to a 3. Do number 18 on your own. Round this number to the nearest whole number, tenth, and hundredth. Pause the video and then play again to see if you're correct. The nearest whole number is 18. The nearest tenth would be 18, and that 0 becomes a 1 because of the 6. And the nearest hundredth, well, that is a nice guy, so we will do nothing to that 6. And those are your answers. I hope you got those right. A baby harp seal weighs about 25 and 482 thousandths pounds. Round this weight to the nearest tenth of a pound. No problem. Let's rewrite our number 25, and it said the nearest tenth. The tenth place has a 4. Look behind that 4. What do you see? I see a bully, an 8. So the 4 becomes a 5. Now I can leave it just like this, or I can add the zeros for the other place. The value remains the same. Name the place value to which the number was rounded. Oh, this makes my brain hurt. So we had this number, 8 and 942 thousandths, and they turned it into 8 and 94 hundredths. What did they round it to? Well, they rounded it to this last place, and that is the what place? 2 places behind the decimal, hundredths. How about here? Well, they turned that 1 to a 2, and they didn't put anything else, so they were rounding to this place, and that place is the tenths. This wasn't as hard as I thought. Take a look at number 22. 15 and 826 thousandths. They turned that to just the plain whole number 16. What did they round to? Pause the video and write your answer. Then unpause to check. They rounded that number to the nearest whole number. All right, my favorite two, the writing and the dig deeper. This is where your teacher really knows if you understand. Please explain what happens when you round 2 and 999 to the nearest tenth. Whew, that is a tough one. And since that's a tough one, I am actually going to get a larger sheet of paper, and we're going to talk about number 23 because this is where kids get confused all the time. Here's my new sheet of paper. I'm going to rewrite the number that they mentioned. I need to go look at it again. 2 and 999. 2 and 999 thousandths. They want me, the instruction was tell what happens when you round to the nearest tenth. So let's go ahead and say that we are looking at the tenths place, this 9. What is going to happen if we round here to the tenths place? Well, you might say easy peasy, but we both know that when we look behind, what do we have? A bully. And that bully is going to push this 9 up 1 to a 10. But can you put 2 digits in one place? No, you cannot. Think about your prior knowledge. Think about whenever you're adding. Whenever you're adding, 9 plus 4 is 13. Do you put a 13 there? No. This is what you do. 9 plus 4 is 13, so you put the 3 here and you carry over that 10, or sometimes we say that 1, but it stands for 10. So, we do the same thing here. We cannot put a 10 here. So, that 0 stays here and replaces that, and that 1 is going to carry over, and that 2 is going to become 3. So if we rounded to the nearest tenth, this number would become 2 and, wait a minute, it won't become 2. Think about it. What will we write? We can't put the 10 here. We're going to have to move it to the 2. Maybe if we say it another way that doesn't sound so confusing. Maybe we should think about it like money. Money, 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 money. Okay? And that number line they talked about before. Here, you got $2. And over here, you got $3. And maybe somewhere in the middle, you've got $2.50, but not quite $3. We want to know this number is closest to what? Take a look at that number. $2.99. We're a penny away from this. Man, this is definitely closer to 3. This is starting to make sense. If we round to the nearest tenths, that 9 becomes a 10. And when that 9, if you have 9 dimes and it turns into 10 dimes, well, 10 dimes is a whole dollar. So now this makes sense. Let me rewrite this. Ooh, it bled through. Hold on. Sorry. So we're going to rewrite this. 2, 9, 9, 9. Round to the nearest tenth. I'm going to look behind. It's a 9. It pushes it to a 10, but we can't leave it like that. So this becomes 3 and 0. Because if we have 10 dimes, we have a whole dollar. And that's why we changed this to a 3. So back to our workbooks. Explain that in your own words. Pause the video and explain what happens. And I'm going to do that now. When the 9 rounds to a 10, we get an extra whole. 3. All right, you might have used different words, and that is just fine as long as you explained it. And last but not least is where we dig deeper, where we really take what we know up here and apply it to something a little more complicated. To what place should you round this number to get the greatest number? And the least number? Explain. Well, 23 and 459 thousandths. Well, the biggest number I could get, well, 23 are wholes. If we could round that to 24, that would be the biggest number, but we really can't because that 4 won't push that 3 up. It looks like if we rounded to the nearest hundredths, no, because tenths are bigger than hundredths. I know. If we rounded to the tenths place, then it would become 23 and 5 tenths. That's the largest number because nowhere else would you change the number because they're all nice guys. And even if we changed this 5, if we moved the hundredths up, that's just pennies. So if we moved a dime up, that would be more. Okay? So, let's see. That's our biggest. What would be our smallest? Well, if we round to the whole number, it would stay a 23. And we wouldn't even put that other stuff there. So that would be our smallest and least number. That is taking what you know and really applying it to something a little harder to think about. It shows that you truly understand. So now that we've done this guided lesson, I want you to work on your own. I want you to complete the questions on page 43 and 44. I want you to do that, and if you have any questions as you work through this, if you don't know how to do it, now's the time to ask, because you have a test tomorrow that covers place value. It covers word form, standard form, before the decimal, after the decimal, comparing decimals, and yes, rounding. So if you need help and you need a little more one-on-one help with this, it's important that you ask this afternoon while you're working on this so you can get ready for your test. Begin working on this now. Like I said, your teacher will either ask that you complete this in your math book or they'll send you the slide